The wedding drums were still echoing in her ears when she realized she had just signed away the life she once imagined. At 20 years old, Zoya had dreamed of university lectures, late-night study sessions, and a future shaped by her own hands. Instead, she stood beneath bright daytime sunlight in a crowded courtyard, henna still dark on her palms, as relatives whispered that she was lucky. Lucky to be married, lucky to be chosen, lucky that the groom, Faris Rahman, was financially stable. Faris was 40, a widower, a father of a 7-year-old boy. Zoya had never even spoken to him alone before the engagement was fixed. If you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Anne Stories. Your support helps bring stories like this to life. The first morning in Faris's house felt unreal. Sunlight streamed through tall windows into a home that was too quiet, too organized, too unfamiliar. Zoya stood in the kitchen, staring at the polished counters, unsure where anything belonged. The housekeeper had taken leave for a week, leaving her alone to settle in as the lady of the house. She felt more like a visitor. The ticking clock on the wall reminded her of everything she had left behind, her college acceptance letter still tucked in her suitcase, her younger sister's tearful hug, her mother's trembling smile that said this was for the best. Her father's business had collapsed under debt. Faris's proposal had come like a rescue rope thrown into drowning waters. There had been no room for refusal. Around mid-morning, she heard small footsteps. A thin boy with solemn eyes stood in the doorway, clutching a school bag. His name was Aman. His hair was neatly combed, but his gaze carried a sadness too heavy for a child. He studied her the way one might examine a stranger who had entered sacred ground. Zoya knelt slightly, forcing a soft smile. She wanted to say something warm, something comforting, but words felt fragile. She had been forced into his life as much as he had into hers. From the living room, Faris's voice carried calm authority as he reminded Aman about homework. He did not look at Zoya when he passed through the hallway, but his presence was solid, measured, almost distant. He was not cruel. He was not loud. He was simply reserved. Like a man who had built walls and forgotten how to open doors. The early days were heavy with silence. Faris left for his office each morning, dressed sharply, his expression unreadable. Zoya remained behind, learning the house, arranging cupboards, trying to give meaning to her new role. Every corner of the home whispered of another woman, Aman's late mother. Framed photographs stood carefully placed on shelves. The woman in the pictures had kind eyes and a graceful smile. Zoya often found herself staring at those images, wondering if she was an intruder in a story that had already been written. Neighbors visited with curious glances. Some pitied her youth, others admired her fortune. A few whispered that she must have been desperate. Those whispers reached her ears more often than anyone realized. One afternoon, while arranging books in the study, she discovered a stack of old university brochures. Her fingers trembled as she traced the names of departments she once dreamed of joining. She felt anger rise, not at Faris, not even at her parents, but at circumstances that had shrunk her world overnight. When Faris returned that evening, she gathered courage and asked, softly, whether she could continue her education someday. His expression did not change. He paused, considering her words carefully, then said they would discuss it later. Later never came that week. Instead, responsibilities grew. Aman fell sick with a mild fever, and Zoya spent the entire day beside his bed, pressing cool cloths to his forehead. At first, he resisted her touch, turning away stubbornly. But when the fever peaked and tears slipped from his closed eyes, instinct overcame hesitation. She held his small hand, whispering reassurance. In that fragile daylight moment, something shifted. Aman began to look at her differently after that. He started leaving small drawings on the dining table, crayon sketches of the house, of his father, and eventually, of a figure with long hair standing beside them. He never labeled the figure, but Zoya knew. Faris noticed too. One Saturday afternoon, sunlight filtered warmly through the curtains as Faris watched Zoya help Aman with homework. She explained math problems patiently, her voice steady and encouraging. Aman laughed, an unguarded, bright sound that seemed rare in the house. For the first time, Faris truly saw her. He saw not a burden arranged by family negotiations, not a fragile girl forced into obligation, but a woman trying to create light in a place shadowed by grief. That evening, he did something unexpected. He asked her to sit with him in the garden. The garden was quiet, blooming with white jasmine under the afternoon sun. Ferris spoke slowly, as if choosing each word with care. He told her about his late wife's illness, about the loneliness that followed, about Amon's silent nights calling for his mother. He admitted he had agreed to this marriage not for companionship, but because his parents believed Amon needed a mother. He did not look proud as he said it. Zoya listened, her heart heavy but clearer. For the first time, she saw his vulnerability. He was not a villain in her story. He was a grieving man who had also been pushed by expectations. Days turned into weeks. Their home began to feel less like a museum of memories and more like a living space. Zoya rearranged small things carefully, never erasing the past but gently weaving herself into it. She cooked dishes her mother had taught her, filling the kitchen with new aromas. Amon started waiting at the gate each afternoon, eager to show her his school results. And then came the surprise. One bright morning, Ferris asked her to dress and accompany him to the city. She assumed it was a family errand. Instead, he drove to a university campus. Her heart pounded as she recognized the gates. It was the same institution from her acceptance letter. Ferris parked the car and handed her an envelope. Inside were enrollment forms, already approved. Her tuition had been paid. He told her he had been observing her strength, her patience, her quiet sacrifices. He said he realized he had almost repeated the same mistake society had made with him, allowing expectations to silence personal dreams. He did not want to be the reason her light dimmed. Zoya felt the world tilt. Tears filled her eyes as daylight shimmered across the campus lawns. For the first time since her wedding day, she felt choice returning to her life. Balancing studies and home was not easy. She woke before sunrise to prepare breakfast, attended lectures through the day, and returned in time to help Amon with homework. Some days exhaustion pressed against her like a weight. Some nights she cried quietly, wondering if she was enough. But Ferris changed too. He began coming home earlier, helping set the table, attending Amon's school meetings. He asked Zoya about her classes, listening with genuine interest. Slowly, companionship replaced formality. Respect replaced distance. One afternoon, during a school event held outdoors under bright skies, Amon introduced Zoya to his teacher as "my mother." He said it without hesitation. The word settled into her heart like sunlight breaking through clouds. Months later, on a breezy, daytime picnic in the same jasmine garden, Ferris apologized, not dramatically, but sincerely, for not asking what she wanted from life before marrying her. He admitted he had been afraid to hope again, afraid to love again. Zoya realized then that forced beginnings do not always dictate forced endings. She had entered the marriage feeling trapped, but she chose to stay not because she had to, but because she saw growth, in herself, in Ferris, in the fragile family they were building. Her college graduation came 2 years later under a bright afternoon sun. Ferris and Amon sat in the front row. When her name was called, Amon clapped the loudest. She no longer felt like the girl who had lost her future. She felt like a woman who had rebuilt it. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, and share. Stories of hope deserve to be spread. And before we reach the final moments of this journey, I have a special request. Comment, "Second chances shine," if you believe love can grow in unexpected places. Life did not magically become perfect. There were disagreements, tiring days, moments of doubt. But there was also laughter echoing through hallways that once felt empty. There were shared breakfasts in warm daylight. There was a child who no longer looked lost. And there was a man who learned that kindness is not shown through control, but through support. Years later, when people spoke about their marriage, they no longer whispered about age differences or arrangements. They spoke about partnership. Zoya often thought back to that wedding day when she believed everything had been taken from her. She realized now that while choice had been stolen at first, courage had restored it. Her story was not about being forced. It was about discovering strength in the most unexpected season of her life. If this journey moved you even a little, let your heart respond. Engage with this video, share your thoughts, and remember that sometimes the brightest futures begin in the most uncertain mornings. Because kindness, when chosen deliberately, can transform even a forced beginning into a beautiful, sunlit tomorrow.